Welcome back to Cinemax. Today we are breaking down one of the most mind-bending films of the last decade. This is Tenet, directed by Christopher Nolan, released in 2020 and starring John David Washington and Robert Pattinson. This movie is famously one of the most confusing films ever made. People walked out of cinemas scratching their heads, so today we are going to slow everything down and explain it in the simplest way possible, step by step, from the very beginning all the way to the ending. By the time we are done, you're going to understand exactly what happened and why. So let us get into it. Before we start the story, we need to understand one big idea that the whole movie is built on. That idea is called inversion. Normally, time moves forward. You are born, you grow up, you get old, and eventually you die. Everything in the universe moves in that direction. Scientists call this the flow of entropy, meaning that things naturally go from ordered to disordered over time. Think of a glass falling off a table and smashing on the floor. That is how time works. But in the world of Tenet, someone in the future has figured out how to reverse entropy. They have invented a machine that can flip this direction for specific objects and people. When something is inverted, it moves backwards through time while the rest of the world moves forward. So an inverted bullet does not get fired from a gun. It gets pulled back into a gun from wherever it landed. An inverted person walks backwards through events that the rest of the world experiences moving forward. They age in reverse. They breathe in reverse. And if an inverted person and a normal person try to punch each other, everything feels wrong and backwards. This is the core concept. Hold on to it, because everything in the story depends on it. The movie opens at a massive opera house in Kyiv, Ukraine. A CIA team dressed as police officers is conducting a secret operation. They are trying to extract an important asset sitting in the crowd before another armed group can get to him. One of the CIA operatives is our main character. In this film, he has no name. The credits simply call him the protagonist. He is played by John David Washington. The operation goes wrong very fast. Gunmen storm the opera house and a chaotic battle breaks out. During the fighting, the protagonist captures one of the enemy operatives. But then, masked figures appear. Not the enemy, someone else entirely. They seem to be helping the protagonist, but they also seem to be moving strangely, as if some of their actions are going slightly backwards. They manage to secure the asset and get out. But then, something terrible happens. The protagonist gets captured by the real enemy before he can escape. He is tortured. His captors want to know about Tenet, a mysterious word they keep asking about. The protagonist does not know what Tenet is. He has never heard the word before. Rather than give up his teammates or reveal any classified information under torture, the protagonist swallows a cyanide pill to kill himself. He is willing to die before talking, but he does not die. He wakes up on a boat, alive. He is told by a handler that the cyanide pill was fake. It was a test. He passed. And now he is being recruited into something much bigger than the CIA. The protagonist is brought in for a briefing. He is told about something called Tenet. Not a person, not a place, a whole secret operation. He is told that inverted weapons and objects have been showing up in the real world. Bullets that fly backwards. Fragments of a mysterious machine. These inverted objects all seem to be coming from the future, sent back through time by someone who has not yet been identified. And they are being distributed in the present day by a Russian oligarch named Andrei Sator. Sator is one of the most dangerous men in the world. He is extremely wealthy. He has powerful connections to criminal networks and intelligence services, and he seems to have a direct line of communication with people or forces from the future. The protagonist is told he needs to get close to Sator, figure out what he is planning, and stop it. To get close to Sator, the protagonist needs to go through Sator's wife, a woman named Kat. Kat is played by Elizabeth Debicki. She is tall, elegant, and clearly miserable in her marriage. She's been trapped by Sator for years. Sator controls her through blackmail. He holds evidence over her head that could destroy her reputation and take away her young son. She cannot leave him. She cannot fight him. She is completely under his control. The protagonist makes contact with Kat. He tells her he may be able to help her. In return, she agrees to help him get an introduction to Sator. Around this time, the protagonist also meets the man who will become his partner throughout the rest of the film. His name is Neil. Neil is played by Robert Pattinson. He is charming, calm, and seems to know a lot more about what is going on than he lets on. He explains the concept of inversion to the protagonist in more detail and introduces him to the technology they will need to use. Neil takes the protagonist to a special facility where they can experience inversion firsthand. Inside a sealed room, the protagonist interacts with inverted objects. He feels an inverted bullet fly back into a gun. He experiences what it feels like to fight an inverted version of himself. It is disorienting and strange and deeply unsettling. But it also teaches him the basic rules of how inversion works. One very important rule is that inverted people need to breathe through special oxygen masks while they are in the normal world, because inverted lungs cannot process normal air. Another important rule is that fire works differently for inverted people. What feels like cold to a normal person feels like burning heat to an inverted person. These details matter later. The protagonist gets his introduction to Sator through Kat and through a complex scheme involving a stolen painting. Without going too deep into all the details, the short version is that the protagonist gets close enough to Sator to observe him and gain some of his trust. But Sator is deeply paranoid and not easy to read. During this part of the story, the protagonist and Neil investigate a massive cargo storage facility at an airport in Oslo, Norway. This facility is where inverted materials have been traced to. When they get inside, they find something extraordinary. Inside the storage building, there is a machine, a special chamber that works like a turnstile. Two people or objects can pass through this turnstile at the same time, one going forward and one going backwards. This is how inversion is transferred. You walk through in one direction and come out in the other direction. From that point on, you experience time in reverse. During their investigation of the facility, something very strange happens. They encounter two figures in the building who seem to be on the same side as them but who are moving and fighting in reverse. These figures help them escape from danger. But who are they? The protagonist and Neil do not know yet. What they do figure out is this. The Oslo facility is an inversion turnstile that is being used to move inverted objects and materials from the future into the present. Sator is the middleman, and the objects being sent back are pieces of something much more dangerous than any weapon. What Sator is collecting piece by piece is called the algorithm. The algorithm is a device made up of 9 separate components. It was built in the future by a scientist trying to solve an environmental crisis. The idea was that if entropy could be reversed on a massive global scale, it might undo the damage done to the Earth. But the side effect of fully activating the algorithm is catastrophic. If all 9 pieces are assembled and activated in the right location, it would reverse the entropy of the entire planet. Not just one object or one person. Everything. The whole world. Which means it would essentially destroy the future. It would end all human life. Not with an explosion, not with a bomb, but by unraveling the very flow of time itself. And Sator wants to set it off. Why would anyone want to do this? Here is the part that makes Sator so terrifying as a villain. He is dying. He has been diagnosed with inoperable pancreatic cancer. He does not have long to live. And rather than accept his death alone, he has decided that if he has to leave the world, then the world should leave with him. He plans to assemble the algorithm and activate it at the exact moment of his death so that he and all of existence end together. It is the ultimate act of a man who cannot stand the idea of a world that continues without him. The people of the future who invented the algorithm sent the pieces back through time specifically to prevent Sator from getting all 9 of them together. But through his connections and his network, Sator has already found most of them. He is very close to having all 9 pieces. The story keeps building as the protagonist, Neil, and Kat work together to track Sator and disrupt his plan. Along the way, they use inversion themselves, traveling backwards through events that they experienced earlier in the film moving forward. This creates moments where the audience sees the same scene twice, once from one direction and once from the other. One of the most visually striking examples is a car chase. The first time we watch the chase, it happens normally. Cars move forward, things explode in the way you expect. But later, when the protagonist goes back through this same event inverted, he is experiencing it in reverse. The cars around him are moving backwards. Explosions are sucking debris back into their origin points. And while the inverted protagonist fights inverted opponents, the forward-moving version of himself from the earlier sequence is right there in the same street, experiencing the same moment from the other direction. This kind of overlapping timeline is used all through the second half of the film, and it is what makes Tenet so famously hard to follow on a first watch. The same moments keep appearing from different angles, each time revealing a little more information about what was really happening. Eventually, the story reaches its climax and everything comes together at once. Sator has the final piece of the algorithm, and he plans to bury it at a specific location in a ruined city in Stalsk 12, an abandoned Russian city. He plans to bury the algorithm at the precise moment that he kills himself. His death and the activation of the device will happen at exactly the same time. And because of inversion, stopping this is almost impossible by conventional means. This is where Tenet, the organization, launches what they call a temporal pincer movement. A temporal pincer movement is a military attack where one group of soldiers fights the battle moving forward through time, and another group fights the exact same battle moving backward through time. Both groups arrive at the middle point from opposite directions. Soldiers moving forward fight through the first half of the battle. Soldiers moving backward fight through the second half. And because they overlap at the center, they can share information with each other through signals and coordinate their attack in ways that would be impossible if everyone was moving in the same direction. This final battle is enormous and chaotic and incredibly difficult to follow. But what you need to understand is that two separate versions of the protagonist are in this battle at the same time. One moving forward, one moving backward. Each one sees the other. Each one is working toward the same goal from opposite ends. Meanwhile, Kat has her own crucial role to play in stopping Sator. Because of the way inversion and time work in this story, it is possible for Kat to go back to a specific moment in the past when she and Sator were on a boat together. This was a happier time in their lives, a day when Sator was relaxed and at peace. It is the last moment in Sator's timeline when he is still alive and not yet at the point of activating the algorithm. If Kat can get to that moment inverted, she can confront Sator there and she can kill him before he makes the call to activate the device. Sator is on his yacht in Vietnam at this moment in the past, having what he believes is a perfect final memory before he ends everything. He is happy, he is at peace, he feels powerful and in control. Kat arrives on the boat. Sator is completely shocked to see her because in his timeline she is nowhere near this location. She tells him what she thinks of him, all the years of control and fear and misery he put her through, all the ways he held her captive through blackmail. She tells him that his power over her is gone, and then she shoots him. Sator dies on the boat in the sunlight, thinking he has already sent the signal to activate the algorithm. But the protagonist and his team in Stalsk 12 find the buried algorithm before it activates and remove the power source. The signal arrives, but there is nothing left to power the device. The algorithm does not go off. The world is saved. Now for the final twist of the film, and it is the kind of twist that makes everything you just watched snap into a completely new shape. After the battle in Stalsk 12, the protagonist talks with Neil. They are both exhausted and bruised. The protagonist looks at Neil's backpack and he sees a red piece of string tied to it, a small detail we also saw on one of the masked figures earlier in the film. The mysterious figure who appeared at several critical moments to save the protagonist's life when things went wrong. The protagonist realizes something. Neil was the masked figure. Neil has been appearing throughout this story, not just as his partner moving forward, but also as a version of himself moving backward, showing up at the exact right moments to rescue him, to open locked doors, to get him out of danger. Neil has been fighting the battle from the other end the whole time. But here is the thing about where Neil is in his timeline right now. When Neil inverted and fought the battle backwards, he ended up at the point in the story where he needs to go back in through a locked gate in the ruined city in order to save the protagonist's life in an earlier part of the battle. He has to go back in, and on the other side of that gate there is an enemy soldier waiting. Neil will walk through the gate moving backward and the soldier will shoot him moving forward. Neil knows this. He has already died on the other side of that gate. His body is already in there. He just has not arrived at that moment from his own direction yet. The protagonist understands this and he tries to stop Neil. He says Neil does not have to do this. He says there has to be another way. Neil shakes his head. He tells the protagonist that this has already happened. He says the battle ended the way it ended. He cannot change it. And then he says something that unlocks the deepest layer of the whole film. Neil tells the protagonist that the protagonist was the one who recruited him, not now, not in this moment, but in the future. The protagonist, years from now, will found the organization called Tenet. He will be the one who sends people and objects back through time. And one of the people he recruits into this organization, years from now, will be a young man named Neil. This means that Neil has known the protagonist his whole life. The protagonist has known Neil for only a few days. Their friendship runs in opposite directions through time. They met at the end of Neil's mission. The protagonist will meet him again at the beginning in the future when he is the one doing the recruiting. Neil says goodbye and walks back through the gate. A gunshot sounds. Neil is gone. The very last scene of the movie ties up one final thread. The protagonist has discovered that Seda had a man inside the Tenet organization, a mole named Priya, who was planning to tie up all the loose ends by having Kat killed now that the mission is over. She knows too much. Priya considers her a liability. The protagonist gets there first. He stops Priya before she can act. He makes it clear to her that Kat is under his protection. And that is the final shot of the film. The protagonist standing tall, having completed his mission, understanding who he is and who he will become. So now let us step back and look at what this movie is really saying underneath all the complexity. Tenet is a movie about a man who discovers that he is responsible for everything that saved the world, including recruiting the people who will sacrifice themselves to make it happen. The protagonist is not just a hero following orders. He is the architect of the entire mission. Every resource used, every agent deployed, every piece of inverted technology that showed up at the right moment, it all came from him. From choices he has not made yet in his own timeline. This creates something called a bootstrap paradox, which means a loop with no clear beginning or end. Who created Tenet? The protagonist did. But how did he know to create it? Because Tenet existed and helped him. Which came first? Neither. The loop feeds itself and has no origin point. The relationship between the protagonist and Neil is the emotional heart of the film. Two men who are genuinely friends, but who are living their friendship from opposite ends. By the time Neil dies, for the protagonist, it feels like a friendship of only a few days. For Neil, it is a friendship of a lifetime. He has known the protagonist from the very beginning of his adult life. He loves him deeply. And he walks into his death with complete calm because he has had a full life, and he knows the mission succeeded. Tenet is a movie about sacrifice, about how the things we create in the future can come back and shape the present, and about how time is not a line but a circle. Everything that happened was always going to happen, and the only reason it worked is because someone chose to start the wheel turning. Christopher Nolan built a film that rewards repeat viewing more than almost any other movie ever made. Things you dismissed as confusing details the first time turn out to be crucial payoffs on the second watch. And the sheer scale of what he constructed, a story that runs simultaneously forward and backward and still makes emotional sense, is one of the most impressive achievements in modern filmmaking. Tenet is confusing, but once it clicks, it is extraordinary. That is it for today's recap here on Cinemax. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next video. We will see you in the next one.